In this video I'm going to show you some basics of type. I'm going to move some of this around so we can just keep that up here. So the type tool, and its keyboard command is T. If you click here and hold down, you'll get a couple options. So we have the type tool, an area type tool, type on a path, vertical area type tool, vertical type on a path tool, and a touch type tool. I primarily use the type tool and the type on a path. And then from there I would use the area type tool. Very rarely do I use these other ones. So let's just start with the type tool. So this helps to bring up the character palette. So Command T. So T will give us the type tool. Notice it creates a cursor. Command T will bring up our character paragraph palette. And with that we have some other options which shows us the font that we have, as well, or I guess this would be the typeface, and then this would be the font style. So this first default one it pulls up is Myriad Pro. You can see that it kind of gives you a sample of all the different fonts and kind of what they look like. And then under the font, so that's your typeface or the family, and then under here we have the different faces, so we could deal with bold or condensed or other ones. Not all fonts have a myriad, or all typefaces have a myriad of fonts, but some do. So in this case we're going to deal with bold. So I'm just going to click here and type typography. So so you can see right now type functions a lot like just an object. So I can move things around. So I can select that piece of type and move it around. I can change its color. You notice again I can sample this if I need to sample a particular color, or I can change it and have it just stroke. So it functions the same way that most objects do in that regard. The difference though is that we can change its font. So let's say I want it to be a bold italic. You can see that that has a bold italic font, or black, or I can also change it to smaller, a thinner face there. So it's got the regular. We can change its size, and size is done with point size. So you can see here that I can just change it to, let's say, 12, which is very small. You'll notice too that the character can be changed up here at the top if you want. If I want to just go in increments of 1 point size at a time, I can do that here, up or down, or 72. I can also type in a particular number if I need to. Oops, I sampled the wrong color there, so you can see that that's bigger. Keyboard commands for that, Command, Shift, and your comma. You notice it is moving the type down by increments of 2. The period will move them up in increments of 2. If I add my Alt or Option key, it will move those in dimension or increments of 10. Okay, so that will upsize and downsize your type. So I'm always kind of using those. The other thing that we have with type is spacing. So it's important that we deal with the spaces in between letters. And so the first one that we're going to deal with here is called tracking. And you'll notice right here I have a tracking. And so I can just set the tracking here by, let's say, 100. You can see it spread out the space in between each letter uniformly. I can also condense that, so you can see it's kind of pulled that together, so it kind of compresses the letter forms. So that's one way we can do that. Keyboard commands for that are Command, Option, right arrow, and left arrow. You can see that those two together will change those by 100. So you can see this increment changing. If I just hold the Option key or the Alt key, it will move those in increments of 20. So it gives you some control over that. So you can kind of see what happens when we control the the tracking, and so that's the space in between all the letters. Now in some cases, and I'll give you an example here, you can see that, let's go just to default, and I'm going to do a Garamond bold, let's say. All right, so you can see with some letter forms, for example, this T and a lowercase o, there might need to be a little bit more space altered in between this letter form, so between the T and the O versus the others. We may want to increase the space here. So this is what we call kerning. And typically kerning only occurs on like a display size. So you don't necessarily want to do this with all of your body copy for like reading a book, but maybe for the cover title you may want to really tweak and control the type and the spacing, so the kerning. So it's a similar keyboard command, but this is where it's controlled here is the kerning. So first I need to select the space in between the two letters. So I go back to with the type tool and I select to put my cursor there. So I've got my cursor in between those two. And you can see that I may want to control that by making it smaller or larger. So you can see how that works. Keyboard command for that. So once this is selected, it's the same. So I could do Alt, Option, and the left and right arrow, and that will move it in increments of 20. And if I add the command, it will move it in increments of 100. The other option, which is great here, because I've got my cursor in between those two, if I hit my arrow left and right, it will toggle into the next letter form. So I may want to increase some of the letter spacing here. So you can kind of see how that works. And the idea is you just want a consistent rhythm in between all the letter forms. And you can see that that's just too much in terms of spacing. So in some cases you want to just tuck those in together a little bit. It'll just give it a cleaner legibility, a little bit more rhythm, better typography. So that's how we deal with kerning. Now we can also do this with a, so I've got, again, I'm going to change the spacing on a few of these. Okay, so now we can also control the spacing in between the lines of type, and that is called the leading. And you'll notice that that is right here. So if I select this and move my leading up or down, it increases or decreases the letter spacing in between those, or the line spacing. So that's the leading. So keyboard command is Alt again, or Option, and the difference here is we could move the up and down arrows. We'll move that in increments of 2. We add the command key and it will move it in increments of 10. So that's how we can control the letter or the line spacing, which is called the leading, and that's here. So that is the main controls in terms of spacing. So we have the point size here. We have the kerning in between two letter forms, and then we also have the leading in between the line, which is here, in between this space, which is here, and then the tracking, which is all the letters. So it gives us the basic typography controls. Now we can do a couple of other things, and I would not recommend doing this because it will destroy the integrity of the letter form. But you'll notice that we have a vertical scale and a horizontal scale. Notice if I change this to 50, it compresses the font, or if I go higher, it extends it. But that is like a really, really bad thing to do because it makes the type look really ugly. So don't do that. Instead, let's say we want that to be more condensed. We need to find a condensed version of Garamond. So you can see I have Garamond condensed. That would be a better choice. Excuse me. So those are some basic controls over typography. At least the first beginning. We'll show you some more tools in a moment.